You get hit by a truck in Georgia, and all of a sudden your life is turned upside down. You're in pain, you're dealing with doctors, your car may be totaled. But what you're not thinking about is what's the deadline to file a claim? And that's the problem, because the clock's already ticking. And if you wait too long, even a single day, you could lose your case before it even gets to court. Hi, I'm Ted Spaulding. I'm a personal injury attorney here in Georgia, and I've seen solid cases and claims get thrown out because someone didn't know the rules. In this video, I'll walk you through exactly how long you have to file a truck accident claim and why waiting, even when you think you have time, is a huge mistake. Because if you don't act quickly, you risk losing the chance at compensation, evidence, and all of this no matter how clear the driver's fault is or how badly you've been hurt. So you've been in a truck accident in Georgia. Maybe it just happened or it happened a couple of weeks ago, and you're still sorting things out. One of the first questions almost everyone has for me is, how much time do I have to bring a claim? This is what lawyers and judges call the statute of limitations. It's basically the deadline for when you have to file a lawsuit in Georgia. But here's the thing. The clock doesn't just start anywhere. It starts at a very specific moment. In Georgia, the clock usually starts the date of the truck accident itself. The law says typically you have 2 years from the date of the wreck to file a personal injury lawsuit. That means if your accident occurred January 1st, 2024, you generally have until January 1st, 2026 to get your claim officially started in court. And a lot of folks assume that they can wait till they're completely healed or until the insurance company makes a final offer before they even need to think about this. But that's not the way to look at it. Whether your injuries are still ongoing or you're waiting on an offer from the insurance company, the 2-year window is closing fast, and it comes by a lot quicker than you think it will. It's not always that simple. Not exactly. Let's go into some real-life examples where the rules can get a little bit tricky. While the basic rule is 2 years, there are some exceptions. And if you miss these, you could lose your right to any recovery, no matter how strong your case is. Let me share a few examples that come up a lot from clients in Georgia. So let's say that the truck that hit you was owned by a city, a county, or maybe a school district. Maybe it was a garbage truck or it was a school bus. If you're thinking about suing a government entity in Georgia, you have what's called the need to file an ante litem notice, which is just a fancy way of saying you have to put the entity, the government entity, on special notice about your claim well before you file a lawsuit. And it gets even trickier because there's different deadlines for filing this ante litem notice, whether it's a city, a county, or the state that you are potentially pursuing. If it is a city, you've got as little as 6 months to file this ante litem notice. And this is a notice, by the way, that you file before a lawsuit. You can't even file the lawsuit if you didn't do the ante litem notice. If it's a county, it is 1 year. If it is the state of Georgia, it is 1 year as well. And there are particular things that need to be in that ante litem notice. So you've got to be very, very careful. And it's best to speak to a truck accident lawyer first, very early on, to make sure you do it the right way. If you miss this, then you're completely out of luck. Even if the government employee was completely at fault and you have significant injuries, you will lose all legal rights if you do not file this ante litem notice. When a minor or an incapacitated person is injured in a truck wreck, the statute of limitations can be different for these two categories of people. So let's first talk about when it's a minor. In Georgia, when a minor is injured in a truck accident, their statute of limitation is basically what's called paused, and it's paused until they turn 18. So what does that mean? A minor has until their 20th birthday to file a lawsuit. So What happens is that 2 years doesn't start to run until they turn 18, and then you have 2 years, so the 20th birthday. If it is an incapacitated adult, for example, the incapacitated adult before the accident, then the statute won't stop. You have the 2 years starts, and that guardian is acting as the incapacitated adult. If the wreck caused incapacity, the statute of limitations could be paused until that person recovers if it's not permanent. Or again, if it is permanent, until a guardian is established. Then the statute starts at that point and the 2 years begins to run. So you got to be real careful in these two scenarios. Sometimes tragedy strikes and you lose a loved one in a truck accident. The timeline for a wrongful death claim doesn't change. It's still 2 years, and it's typically 2 years from the date of the accident. So don't assume it's 2 years from the death, because sometimes what we have is the person does not pass away right away. And oftentimes people think, well, that extends the statute of limitations. Does not typically do that, so be very mindful. I always tell people to assume in a wrongful death claim, it is just like any other injury claim. It's 2 years from the date of the wreck. Another scenario is, let's assume that the injuries from the truck accident don't show up until later. This would be really rare. Maybe you didn't realize you had a serious back injury, or it took months for the doctor to tie certain symptoms to the crash. What I tell people is, do not assume that that's going to give you extra time. It's called the discovery rule, and it does not often apply in truck accident cases. So just because it took you longer to realize you were injured is not likely going to give you more time on your statute of limitation. It is a pretty hard and fast rule. It is 2 years from the date of the accident, not when you discovered your injuries. It would be really rare that you would get in an extended period of time because you had some sort of injury that you couldn't have assumed that you had because of this wreck. Now, this is the most important thing I'll say all day. If you miss the statute of limitations, your case is probably over before it even starts. The court will almost always throw out your lawsuit, no matter how badly you were hurt or how clear the fault was of the truck driver. Insurance companies know this too. They have no reason to settle with you if they know the statute of limitations has passed. So let me give you a real life example. I once got a call from a woman. Her husband was seriously injured and passed away in a truck crash on I-75. She thought she had done everything right. She kept all the paperwork. She filed the estate. She dealt with the insurance company, and she sat back and waited. And the insurance company kept dragging it out and dragging it out. She got closer and closer to the statute of limitation. About a week before the statute ran, she could not get in touch with the insurance company anymore. So she kept waiting. She thought they had to respond and that would give her more time. She didn't think it was a big deal. Well, they did that on purpose because they knew she was about to run out of the statute of limitation. Why make an offer at that point? She might blow it. Unfortunately, she did. I looked into it, tried to see if there was any exceptions that we could bring up, but there weren't any. So I had to tell her she had a great case, but unfortunately, the statute of limitation has passed, and I would not be able in good faith to file a lawsuit on her behalf. It was over. Now, you may be thinking, well, if I have 2 years, I'll just wait. I'll settle with the insurance company, and if I can't, then right before the statute of limitations, I'll file a lawsuit, or I'll reach out to a lawyer and have a lawyer then file a lawsuit. Listen, I get it. I hear this all the time, but waiting until the last minute is always a bad move. First and foremost, evidence disappears. The truck and the accident scene get cleared. Witnesses move on, or they forget what happened. Surveillance footage goes away. They're often erased or taped over within the first 30 days. Trucking company lawyers are experts, and they know how to run the clock out. So do the insurance companies. Second, filing a lawsuit's not as easy as just dropping off some paperwork. You got to know who to sue. Make sure you get all the correct parties into the lawsuit, including insurance companies potentially, or manufacturers of a component part or the truck if there's a product defect. You got to know the right names, the addresses, how to get them served correctly. And if you do this at the last minute, you could get the lawsuit filed in time, but you don't serve in time, and then it still gets kicked out. You don't want to wait to the end. And finally, insurance companies know exactly when the deadline is. So if you wait right up to the end, they're going to ghost you. They're going to stop talking to you. They're going to hope you miss the deadline or that you file and do it by yourself and don't get proper service, and then their lawyers can kick out the case. Also, remember, it is really hard to hire a lawyer a month or two or even a couple of weeks before the deadline. Most attorneys, including myself, we are very busy. We're on a lot of deadlines. If you call us a week before, we're not going to have time to investigate and get the proper parties involved. We may malpractice, so we're less likely to take your case when it's that close to the deadline. Don't wait. So, how do you make sure that you don't run out of time and lose your shot? Let me give you some recommendations that I give to all my clients. First and foremost, obviously, you need to get medical attention as quickly as possible. Don't wait. Even if you think right after the wreck you're okay, get checked out and then follow doctor's advice from there as your injuries start to develop. Speak to a lawyer very, very early. This is massively important in truck accident cases. The other side, the moment the wreck occurs and they find out, they're already building their defense. They have a team of lawyers and experts. They'll go out to the scene. So you're already behind. Speak to an attorney as soon as possible. Find out if representation is your best path. And number 3, don't rely on the insurance company timeline. They're going to try to drag things out. They're hoping you won't know how to preserve evidence. Truck accident insurance companies know how to do this. They will get rid of evidence because you didn't ask for it or ask it to be preserved correctly. So don't rely on their timelines. Gather all the evidence you can there at the scene and the days after. That will help your lawyer if you hire a lawyer. You want to get all the witness information. You want to look for video evidence, stores and businesses in the area. You want to get the police report, take photographs, do all of these things on your own to make sure things are starting to be preserved. And finally, take action. Even if you're not fully back from your medical injuries, you've got to not wait. You can't wait till you're all done. It might be too long. You might have such big injuries. These are going to take years to resolve. It does not stop your statute of limitation. Do not think otherwise. Here's the bottom line. After a truck accident in Georgia, time is not on your side. 2 years might sound like a long time, but it goes very quickly. The sooner you act, the better your chances of getting the medical care, compensation, and justice you and your family deserve. If you're watching this video and you've had a truck accident, whether it was last night or a few weeks ago or months ago, don't wait. Every situation is unique, and getting good advice as early as possible can make all the difference. We just covered how long you have to file a truck accident claim in Georgia and why it's so important to act quickly. But maybe you're facing a heartbreaking situation where you have lost a loved one in a wreck. If you want to know who can file a wrongful death claim and how that process works in Georgia, don't miss my next video, Who is legally allowed to file a wrongful death claim? I'll break down who qualifies, how families can get justice, and what steps you need to take right away to protect your rights. Trust me, you don't want to miss it. I'll see you over there.